another episode of Rips and Sips, and today I'll be talking about my deconversion story from the Southern Baptist Christianity cult of the Ebenezer Baptist Church that I was brought up in. And this is going to be kind of a meandering episode. I'm not going to try to stay too structured. I'll probably ramble on about several different things. But I'm going to start it off, as always, with a rip and a sip. That's how I like to start my morning out. So, yeah, my deconversion story. Start off with the actual years that I was in church, which would have been from birth to right around 18 years old. Well, it'd have been about 18, 19 that I actually got out. I started, I'll get into it a little bit. So my church years would have been about up till age 18, because I joined the Army when I was 17, and I went to basic training. I believe I turned 18 in basic training. So, and I know I went to church a handful of times in basic training because see, now I remember in basic training I didn't believe, because I can remember making the conscious decision to go to church because it got us out of work. If you could go to church and do the church thing, this is in basic training, or you could stay back at the barracks and do cleaning. You could, mop, wax, buff the floors, straighten all the shit up, and run the risk of an errant drill sergeant roaming about, catching you doing some shit that, for whatever reason, ends you up doing a bunch of push-ups and getting in trouble. So, at first, church seemed like the safe bet, because I would go there and I'd go to sleep, to be honest. In basic training, you're wore the fuck out. You know, you can literally fall asleep standing up, and I have. So in the church setting, what do? We bow our head every once in a while, right? Well, I spent a lot of time in prayer, let's say, in deep meditation in Fort Benning's church. I think they just had Protestant services and they had Catholic services. They didn't get all, wild into the denominations. You just got A or B. Or if you were a Muslim, they had services for other religions also. Anyway, that was like I was using that to figure out how long I actually was in the church. And I would say about 18 years then. And, so in the 18th year though, it happened to where I didn't believe it. Or I might have even believed it still, because I kind of went through a phase where I was scared of God, but I didn't see any evidence of it and I wasn't thinking this way back then. I was doing it on a very more primitive level, and an emotional level. I was basically trying to piss God off enough for him to show himself, for him to do something that I could be like, that was him, that was God, he did that. I did a thing that made him mad, and he got me for it, and that I couldn't construe it as anything else. Like, basically that I could see God's hand come out of the clouds and fucking slap me or some shit. So I was trying to set myself up to get some kind of sign from God, because I haven't, in my, up to that point, I'd say I probably started this type of shit when I was in high school still, probably around age 16, where I was trying to test out this not believing, because it was, my bullshit detector was going wild. It was telling me that God isn't real. Now, weirdly enough, I had a friend Colby, who told me that he didn't believe in God. And this, Jesus, he's probably 13 or 14. And I talked to him, and he said that, and I can remember being a little kid, and I remember having all these emotional reactions to it, because he was my good friend. I was real close to him. So I was immediately angry and scared that he was going to go to hell. Because that's part of the selling point of heaven, is everybody you love, everybody that's ever been important to you is going to be there. Everything. So there's a guy, or my buddy, boy, little kid at the time, that he's not going to be in heaven with me. And that upsets me, because I didn't understand at the time what Christianity cult does is makes you not give a shit about the present, about what you're doing here, about what you're doing to other people. All you care about's the end game after. The game after the real thing that's going on, the afterlife. That once you stop thinking that there's an afterlife, that tears the seams out of religion, because, well, I'm kind of getting off of where I was going with that, but shit, lost my train of thought. But let's see, dive back into it somehow. The after effects of the cult, for me, I think I was kind of going this direction, was I started looking into other religions. Like, I didn't necessarily, I know what I was saying. Back to it. I was trying to test God to get him to have a reaction that I could gauge, that I could say, oh, that was him, something that I couldn't write off as, oh, yeah, the wind blew a bunch of leaves up just now when I thought that, but the wind does blow leaves. Like, that type of shit used to, like, whenever I was a Christian, that type of shit would compel me. Like, if I would have a thought of, like, please, God, give me a sign, and, this piece of paper would fall over or some shit, that would be it. That would be my sign, and I would take it, and I would be like, yeah, I asked, and God knocked this fucking piece of paper over for me, so, I got it. But, like, not realizing how fucking stupid that is. Like, if there's an all-powerful, all-knowing creator of the motherfucking universe, not just the creator of me and a handful of other dudes or some shit, like, this motherfucker created the stars and the planets and the gases and accretion disks that formed the stars and the fucking planets, like, all that shit, all this crazy detail and atoms and little spinning balls of shit that we're all made out of. That thing couldn't just show me. Couldn't just be like, listen, you little goofy ape, I sent you my book, and dipshit up the hill fucking read it to you wrong. And you all copied the words backwards and wrong and fucked up, so... You know, like, I could see if, like, the God was imperfect and he's just fucking this up the whole time. I could see that God. But, like, yeah, like, so I was testing without really understanding that that's what I was doing, I think. Because I would do bad shit, or, you know, stuff that the Bible said was bad. Man, like, dude, jerking off, having sex with girls, like, that shit brought great shame to me. Because we were very much shamed sexually for our natural inclinations of what we want to do. And let alone if you had those urges about another boy or someone of a different race, like I kind of was talking about last episode. You know, they use that shit to do whatever. I think it just boils down to whatever the fuck the pastor has rattling around in his brain, is he interprets that Bible and spits it out at us to reflect his views, right? So if I got in my brain growing up in that church that we shouldn't date outside our race, we shouldn't fucking work on Sundays, we shouldn't do this, we shouldn't do that, that was going through that pastor's brain filter and coming out at the congregation. And we got the message. But we were under the impression that this is what God fucking thinks. This is what God's telling this asshole to tell us. But, and then not even thinking deeply enough to think that, okay, if there's a God that's telling the pastor this shit, so he could disseminate the information to us, why wouldn't the God just give us that information directly? You know what I mean? Like, why not skip the middleman of the pastor and the Bible? Fuck. Skip the Bible. Why write it down? Words get fucked up over time. Why wouldn't that shit just be hand delivered to us by the Creator at birth or in the womb? Why don't he shrink himself down, go into the womb, and talk to the fucking fetus that's a human, right? Because abortion, we're murdering humans, according to them. You know, it's a human embryo. You know, it's the potential to be a human. But regardless, why wouldn't he do something like that to where it's in dispute that everyone would have the same experience? Like, no, man, like Jesus talked to me in the womb. Like, I did. That's my first memory of life, was talking to Jesus in the womb. He shrunk himself down. He was sitting on the placenta right beside me, and he showed me everything inside my mom, inside the womb, and told me what it was scientifically. And told me, this little cord here that's going into your belly, that feeds you from your mother, because now you haven't met her yet. She's on the outside. He broke it down to me. He told me all these things and said he would come back and tell me later, that why don't that shit happen? Why wouldn't, because this is an omniscient, omnipotent deity that could explode himself into fractals of himself and be everywhere at the same time, and talk to everything at the same time, and communicate to everything at the same time, the same message, on the level that particular organism understands. And the world and nature could just be a Disney movie where I go outside and birds land on my fucking shoulders, and I, instead of walking out to get the newspaper, a little chipmunk picks it up and runs up my leg and hands me the newspaper. I'm like, well, shit, buddy, hop in my pocket and let's go inside and get some fucking bong rips and coffee sips. That's what fucking should be happening if there was a fucking God. There shouldn't be babies dying. There shouldn't be just abject poverty. And, you know, good people are fucking just dying and fucking at high rates, and assholes are living forever and fucking, you know what I mean? Like, you got good people that could do good in the world, and they will have their lives snuffed out short in some random car accident or some, you know, something fucking goofy, and they die and they're gone. And you've got child molesters that will continue to do that activity, continue to gain power and manipulate people in society, and become priests and preachers, and get themselves to a position of authority over the adults of the children, of the adult caretakers of the children, and they manipulate them, and then they go in and get the children, all under the name of that God. And that God's silent. He never shows up. Now, you know, these are all, this, I know I'm kind of rambling, but this is all part of my deconversion. These are all thoughts I was having that were driving me the other way. And it took me, one, it was throughout my church years, like I mentioned in the previous episode, I was racist, I was homophobic, I had a lot of fucking issues that the church teaches you. And what started to turn me away was my grandfather did not go. He did not go there. And through some unfortunate circumstances that I won't get into right now, I was closer to my grandfather than I was my father. And so I had a lot of value for my grandfather. He did a lot of stuff with me. He took me out hunting and fishing, and so did my father. But it was, yeah, that's a different story. But yeah, so my pap, he didn't go to church, and the church people would try to course my grandma and shit about him. You know, oh, you know what? Because there was all the happy couples up there, and then there's my grandma, that she's up there, and Pap would just stay home. And Pap wasn't a dick about it. He just didn't find that wasn't his thing. You know, he didn't want to do it. And but they would use that on me, to use me on him. So they would tell me, you know, don't you, you know, we're all going to heaven, right? You know, they condition you that way. They tell you that we're all going to heaven up there in the church. You know, we're all going, whenever the Lord comes back and poofs us all up to the great fucking Walmart in the sky, we're gonna, you know, we're all gonna be up there, and it's gonna be great. And then they would tell me, don't you want your grandpa to be there? Because they knew that man was, the sun rose and set in on that dude to me, you know, like that was the man to me. And so it put a lot of worry, a lot of anxiety, a lot of paranoia that comes out later in mental issues with me. And it puts all that in my head as a kid, worrying, you know, fuck man, I'm under 10 years old at this time. And it puts all that worry on me that I have to get my pap up there. But I was very awkward and shy and didn't know how to say it. I didn't understand. I don't know. I didn't really talk to adults, you know, at that point. Like I didn't I didn't understand what to say to get him to do it. But I could talk to my grandma. I was comfortable talking to her about it. And she would, oh yeah, and she would go right along with me that, yeah, Pap needs to go up there. And I would be like, well, is he going to hell if he don't? Yeah, he's going to hell if he don't. That's a giant blow to a little kid's world. That you're telling me that this place that you're telling me that I'm going to go, that everybody's going to be happy and shit. See, this is what she didn't understand that she did. That it immediately clicked it in my brain. It poked like 50 holes in their story all at once, and she didn't realize it. But first thing I thought was, well, they told me that if I going to heaven, it's pure happiness. It's pure happiness there. You're going to be completely and totally satisfied, happy, glorious, glory be to Jesus. You're going to just worship him all the time, and all your family's going to be there, all your loved ones. That's how it's going to go. And then they just told me that loved one, my grandfather, is not going. Well, what is it? Is everybody that I love and everybody that's important to me going to be there in heaven with me? Or is my grandpa going to hell and I'm going to heaven with these other fucking people? Not just the other people, with my grandma and my grandma, or my grandma and my mom and my, not my dad. But I didn't, like I said, my relationship wasn't good with him then. So, I didn't care about that. They were, they were conditioning me to be heartless towards others that weren't in the cult. That's what that was doing. That was hardening me to the idea of my grandfather burning forever. And we were going to, be up in heaven, watching down on this shit. But, regardless, that was the thing that poked the holes in it immediately for me as a little child, was you're telling me that I'm going to the happiest place in the world, except my grandfather, who you just told me my whole family's going to be there with me, but now you're telling me my grandpa ain't going to be there. And not only is he not going to be there, but he's going to be in hell burning. So now, that made me not dismiss the whole thing. It made me get spiteful and start trying to test, like I said earlier. So what I was doing, what I basically had said to God, I did say it out loud to God, was, fine then, I'll go to hell with my grandpa. I'll go to hell with Pap. Because I would rather go to hell with my Pap than spend a day in your heaven without him. So I'll fucking go there then. So it made me start turning towards, I guess it would be like Satanism or some shit, kind of. Because I started listening to heavy metal and shit, and from 90s pop country to fucking Slayer and Cannibal Corpse and all kinds of crazy shit. Good fucking music. But and heavy metal music. Heavy metal music changed me a lot. Whenever I started reading the lyrics for certain songs and shit, when they were talking against religion and against deities and shit, I realized, oh, there's other people out there. They're musicians or whatever, but they're people and they're writing these things, and God's not zapping them dead like they act like they would do up at the church. They're able to say these things, and the deities are not striking them dead for it. So that kind of poked holes in it. And just the fact that I said out loud to God that I would rather go to hell with my grandpa than go to heaven with you assholes and be without him and watch him burn. Fuck you. I'll go with him and burn with him. That was my attitude. And then eventually that evolved into realizing that it's all horseshit. But they were trying to condition me. And it had the adverse effect. They were trying to condition me to the idea that people I love are going to go to hell, and it's okay. It's okay for that God to be mean to my grandfather, because my grandfather don't do the church dance. He don't do the Bible dance. So that was a key driving force. Was just that. So then we go, from like age 10 all through those years, I was, rattling thoughts around in my head. Got to the Army at age 17, 18. Got sent overseas. Met my team leader, Sergeant L. We'll just call him that. He had a real long last name, started with an L. So we'll say that. And Sergeant L and me would talk about philosophy and shit. I didn't know it was philosophy, but he was the first person who ever told me what agnostic meant. And he was the first person that told me what atheist meant. And as soon as he told me that shit, I went out and got my dog tags changed. I went out and got a set of agnostic dog tags. And I still got them some fucking where. And I remember feeling good that there was a name for me. I'm an agnostic. And this is before I really understood what it, because I think I just blew off the term atheist. Agnostic, for some reason, my mind took a liking to that term. And that was so valuable, was just learning those two terms, that there was a name for what I felt, because I thought I was fucking alone. And then that team leader, I mean, he was an E5, he was a sergeant, I was a private, I was brand new. So I looked up to that guy a lot, and as I should have. For once, a dude I looked up to, it turned out, yeah, man, that's the one. That's the dude I should have been looking up to. And he went on to be a fucking special forces field surgeon. So, very bright individual, great man. I hope he's still alive. Yeah. Sergeant L. But anyway. What was I getting at? Oh yeah. Atheist and agnostic. So then, after I got out of the Army, the internet was kind of a fledgling thing. There was like some chat rooms and shit, but like there wasn't even MySpace. Like there wasn't even like real. You could email and shit, and like see stuff online, but that was about it. Porn. So then YouTube came out, and most atheists probably know where I'm going with this part. Is there was this show called The Atheist Experience. So me already embracing the term agnostic, and like I said, at this point I'm out of the Army, I'm home, and dealing with issues, mental issues that were undiagnosed at the time. I had severe rage issues, severe addictive personality, like I was doing every drug I could fucking get my hands on, along with pot. But turns out this is medicine, and if I wasn't lied to about drugs when I was young, that I'd probably just stuck to that, and I'd have been okay. But anyhow, onward, AXP. So I start watching AXP, and there was Tracy Harris, Jen Peoples, Matt Dillahunty, Ashley Perrin, I believe, Joe Zemecki, Jeff D. Jeff D, Tracy Harris, and Jen Peoples and Matt were my favorites. Matt, mostly because he knew the Bible inside, outside, upside down. So anytime they would pull the Bible scripture angle, he would shoot that shit down, and it really stuck in my mind as to just how worthless the Bible is as a truth-telling document, right? So that was a big factor. But Jeff D, Tracy, and Jen, they would attack from different angles. And I really liked how Tracy did it, because Tracy was so nice and sweet and kind, but would just rip their heart out and show it to them. Like, with their arguments and shit, like, metaphorically, of course, but, like, seriously, was just so sweet and kind and would be like, here's your internal organs, sir. And you're like, fuck, like, how does my brain not work like hers does? Like, how do I not see these fucking bullshit fallacies? How did I not? But regardless, their experiences got me to learn. That was the great value of that show to me whenever I was coming out of the cult. So, and I call them all cults now. Like, all religions are cults. Islam, fucking Hinduism, Buddhism, all of it. It's all cults. And there's cults. That's a whole nother episode. But yeah, the AXP got me. It reinforced what I was already thinking. I already was thinking these things, but they put it into good words that I could use. Because, like, it was just rattling around in my brain. They were good ideas. They were good bases for getting rid of the cult, but it wasn't structured right in my mind. Like, and AXP put some structure behind the emotion, basically, because I was coming from it emotionally, because I was very upset that I'd been lied to, I'd been fooled. So I would say that's how and why that happened. And then, luckily, I know this doesn't happen to a lot of people. Later in life, more recently actually, I got into finding fossils and fossilized wood and different fossilized plants and stuff. And, like, over there, all those rocks and shit, those are all fossils that I've found. And me and my brother my brother at the time was in the cult still. And me and him, he likes cool rocks too, right? So me and him were, somehow we had talked to each other, and he liked the fossils I was finding enough, and I told him something about I wanted to go to the Natural History Museum in Cleveland and donate some of them and show them on a map where I found them and different things, and have them like up there in the museum. So me and him actually took fossils up there and donated them to the museum. It was pretty cool. I met a very old lady. She was the head curator of paleobotany up there. Shia Shatali, I believe was her name. She's passed since, but I think she was like 90 years old whenever I met her, and she was sharp as could be. And she discovered most of the Cleveland Shale, like most of the fossils that were there. And it's a story for another day, but it was really cool. And me and him were talking on the way home, and it came up because the fossils, I think the age of them, because they were like over 300 million years old, and that doesn't comport with a 10,000-year-old Earth, right? So I think that rattled him a little bit, and then we started talking. We started having a talk about, the fuck was it? Gay people. Started saying, because that was something about sin and sinners and the gays. And then I said, well, what the fuck did I say to him? I can't remember how I put it, but I made a joke of, I can't remember, man. I'll have to get him to tell me. But I made a joke, like, basically, was he scared that dicks were delicious? Something along those lines. And that gay people were not... It was basically, I proved to him that gay people were not something to be scared of or icky or whatever the fuck he was thinking. I wish I could recall what I said, but I can't. It's neither here nor there. It did the job. It rattled his thinking, and eventually me and him had great conversations. Eventually me and him built a deck. Me, him, and my friend built this large deck porch with a roof on it, and we talked a lot then, and he was still a Christian then, and eventually he became an atheist. He got out of that cult. He got out of that racist way of thinking. He got out of the fucking homophobic way of thinking. So I lucked out greatly by being able to just have a conversation with my brother. And I've had similar conversations with my son. I got my son out of that cult. I put my foot down and told, because my mother was, I'm divorced, and my kid would be over on visitations on the weekends, and I finally told my mom, like, hey, you're not taking him up there. You know, this is my time, and I'm the dad, and I get to say, you know, no, he's not going up there and getting brainwashed. I don't believe that shit no more. I'm not having him do it. You can believe it all day, all you want. I would prefer you didn't, but you're a grown person. He's a child. He's not going up there. If he turns 18, decides he wants to go up there, he can go up there. So I was able to assist in getting 2 people out, and I'm very grateful that I got to do that. So with that said, maybe I can delve into this more some other day. But I think I'll end it there.